Hey guys, welcome back to the Human Condition. Welcome back to another philosophy video. Today, I thought a pretty cool concept that I thought a lot about before, and um, it is what is political philosophy. Now, don't worry, I'm not gonna get too controversial. I'm not big enough of a YouTuber to be that way. But today, I'm just basically talking about philosophical and political beliefs, and what, in my personal opinion, what I believe some people might lean more left or more right. This is all just opinion based, so I could be wrong. But yeah, so this is why I think some people. This also can kind of tie into psychology too, because it could explain why. I read somewhere that typically more right leaning people or conservative people are rank higher in the conscientious scale, while more left leaning people rank higher in the open to experience scale, and that kind of makes sense. Because more left leaning is the one that's always trying new things, and more right is more focused on individual reality and stuff like that. So basically, I'll be talking about the left and right, and what philosophical or what the ideology means behind each two, or at least what I believe the ideology between the left and right political parties are. Because I feel like a lot of times people don't really dive deep into the actual ideology behind it. They just use the terms like left and right, or the political party names or whatever, without actually diving deeply into what it actually means to be on the right side or the left side. So I think that's pretty important to actually figure out, like not just to go along with something, but actually to at least try. Maybe you won't always know what it means, but at least try to understand it better. I think, and just in general about anything in life, it's better to try to understand it before you just openly embrace it. So let's start at the beginning of politics. Let's take a little history trip. Back to another subject I really like, history. That'd actually be a good channel topic, history. I like history a lot, especially political history. So back a long time ago, there was a pretty lit guy named George Washington. George Washington was the first U.S. president, and he was actually a part of no political party. And even before he left office, I'm pretty positive there was, don't quote me, but I could be wrong, but I think he said something at the lines of, "We can't have two political parties or this will divide our country apart." And then I was like, dang, he's kind of right. So there was the first two parties, the Federalist and the Democratic Republican Party. And basically, the Federalists were big federal government, which makes sense, and the Democratic Republican Party were for states' rights and individual rights. Which is ironic. You might be wondering, the Democratic Republican Party, and I think I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty positive the Democrats and the Republicans back in the day were actually part of the same party, which is kind of crazy. And I think the reasoning behind this is kind of like in our old last philosophy video about duality. Everyone in life needs an opposition, the importance of duality and having someone that's different from you. So back then, the Democrats and Republicans had a united front against another opposition, and then after that happened, I'll talk about it later. But after that happened, there was something that happened that made the party kind of collapse on itself. But basically, it was the Federalist versus the Democrat Republicans. The Federalists were all for big federal government, and were more sympathetic towards Britain after the Revolution, whereas the Democrat Republicans were all nationalistic patriots, fighting for America, So that was the two battles between the Federalists, which were like national banks, money, country, united front, all for those ideals, whereas Democrat Republicans were kind of skeptical about banks and more for individual rights. And that was the main clash. Some people saw the Federalists as being too supportive of Britain, and some people saw the Democratic Republicans as being too not practical enough. They thought, yeah, we understand that you want your independence, but it's important to be for the country to be economically stable. So after a long period of time of political parties, them battling it out, eventually the Federalist Party seemed to start losing supporters more and more, and they started trickling into the Democratic Republican Party. And this is known for I think James Monroe, the era of peace, were where it was only one political party. And this didn't last long, obviously, because everything needs an opposite, right? So it collapsed and had like almost like a civil war, and it divided into two parts: the Whigs and the Democrats, and that led on to eventually being the Republicans and the Democrats. So how have these political parties developed, and what are the pros and cons to each? Again, a disclaimer, like in all my videos, if I say anything controversial, that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry, I'll take it back, like all my videos. But again, I'm not going to say which side I support. It's completely up to you. Who am I to tell you which side I support? I mean, I do support one side, but I won't tell you what it is, you know? But, yeah. Who am I to tell you what side to support? I know that there's pros and cons to everything. So I'm going to try to be objective about it, you know? It's got to be objective. So originally, the Republicans were not the progressive party, which is ironic because they're more the traditional party, and the Democrats were the traditional party. The Democrats' ideology back then is still similar to the ideology now, and the Republicans' ideology back then hasn't changed much since now. The Whigs were very like successful business type people, and the Democrats were more the average Joe type people. Back then, the Democrats, it was typical for society to want to be traditional. And so the Democratic Party was traditional because, right, Democratic Party, at least in my mind, I could be wrong, is more of the societal party and trying to fit the societal norms. The Republican Party back then, as still now, I think is more of the individual people in the party, but I could be wrong. At least according to my opinion, I could be wrong again. So this being said, back then, the status norm was traditional, and the individual thing that was kind of out of pocket was progressivism. And so like I know back then the Republican Party actually supported prohibition, or at least this extreme Republicans supported prohibition. So that's like an interesting tidbit there. So, but at some point along the lines, society became almost switched because the progressive became cool, I guess, or like, I don't know, became norm for some reason, I don't know. So it switched at some point because it switched when, a lot of people say it switched when FDR, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, became the Democratic nominee and was very societal and like so a lot of healthcare and societal services up. And that's when the Democratic Party became more progressive versus traditional. And that's when a lot of times the Republicans back then didn't like that because they believed that individuals should do things for themselves, not be provided for. And that's why they became more traditional. So it switched from Democrats being more traditional and Republicans being more progressive when Franklin Delano Roosevelt, at least in my opinion, became president. And once that switched, the Republicans became traditional and the Democrats became more progressive. And that was because, again, Republicans is more on individual rights and Democrats are more on societal rights. And that's why I believe depending on what type of person you are and what beliefs you have and what you want to achieve in life is what political party you'll be part of. So yeah, I think that's why my main belief between what political philosophy is the philosophies behind both party. And I think a lot of people say there was a party switch. I don't know if I believe that 100%. I think there was and there wasn't. Just like how I think truth is subjective and objective, right? It's more of a gray area. I think, yeah, there was a party switch, but the underlining deeper roots to the parties probably stayed the same. Democrats remained societal oriented and Republicans remained individual right oriented. And that's still true today, I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. And there's nothing wrong with either one. There's pros to both, right? There's goods to both. Pro to the right side is individual rights, but the con is sometimes it might neglect societal norms, societal rights, and like diplomacy. But positives, it will strengthen the individuals, companies, and the nation. Democratic is more pro is societal, so they'll focus on policies of diplomacy across the world, diplomacy, helping the poor people, helping a little bit the average Joe, more lower class to middle class, whereas Republicans more middle class to higher class. And it just depends on what type of person you want to be. Obviously, if you want to be successful, like if you want to be up in the upper class, you're not going to want to go against yourself because that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, you could, but it doesn't make sense. And if you want to be, just stay like chill, like, which is good too, you obviously might be more left. It just depends on how, like, which direction you want to go. And that's depends. Like, typically a business person wouldn't be left leaning, but they could be, because if you want to be successful in a business, you want to strengthen your company. Whereas a social worker might be more left because they want to help society. And there's pros and cons to both. So you just have to decide, like, do you want to focus on your individual rights, or do you want to focus on societal rights? Give up your own desires for others, or do you want to help yourself and then help others be the best they can be, right? So do you want to help others be the best they can be and follow the individual rights, or do you want to help society as a whole and kind of give up yourself for the other people? And it all comes down to perceptions, right? I could be wrong, I don't know. But I think the ideological basis is Democrats, societal policies, Republicans, individual policies. Strengths, strong nation, strong companies, strong individuals. Weaknesses, neglect for some societal people and lower class people, like the poor, and not the majority, right? But there's still pros. The cons, those are the cons. Left side or Democrat Party pros strengthens poor communities, the minority, focus on minority of people, and the, I guess, like, and global diplomacy. Negatives, lack of individual rights, or suppression of individual rights, weaker economy or weaker nation, and third one being a weaker nation, less individual rights or suppression of individual rights, and that's basically the cons of that. So those are the pros and cons and the ideologies of both political parties, and that's what political philosophy is. Again, I wouldn't say anything too controversial. I was trying to be objective as I could and not roast either one, because I think there's, like, genuinely, I do think there's pros and cons. And even if, like, for me, I know I support one or the other, but I respect and appreciate the other side, as I don't have any reason to tear other people down. I think you shouldn't tear other people down because they're successful. I think you should aspire to be successful, not tear other people down because they're successful. So yeah, those were my opinions on the ideologies of Democrats and Republicans and what political philosophy is as a whole. I hope you guys found this video interesting. I really appreciate all the support I've gotten recently. I hope you guys thought differently about, like, politics and philosophy and just anything in general, and we're like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool concept to think about. Even if I don't agree with it, I still think it's a cool concept. Yeah, thanks guys again for the support. I love you guys. Like and subscribe if you want. My next video might be, like, probably another, I'm gonna probably post something kind of out of pocket. It'd be probably a video on my theory on the plot holes of The Umbrella Academy, and try to talk. So if you like that show, check it in. If you haven't seen that show, highly recommend. It's a fire show. But yeah, that'll be my recommendations on or my theory on how to explain the plot holes in the Umbrella Academy. So stay tuned. That should be a pretty good one. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Love you guys.